Production.
Good evening, gentlemen. It is your boy, Sir Yeetus. Welcome to episode 191 of Yeetus Thoughts. I know it's been a while. I haven't streamed in like almost a week, but life happens, and the way that things are going in your community and society in general, I'm sure you guys are very busy as well. But I'm sure you guys are very understandable from where I'm coming from. So it's too easy. That's why I have to repay you guys back for being so patient to bring you another banger, okay? I did promise you guys for a while that I was going to bring TFM on here, and TFM is here right now, and we're going to continue our discussion on the cultural war. And from the first stream that we did to the stream that we're about to do right now, lots of things changed. Lots of things changed. A lot of things that pretty much changed the playing field for better or worse. So also we have the Great Ghost here as well. So you already know it's going to be a great discussion. But before we begin, if you want to support your boy Sir Yeetus, there's a link on top of the chat. Cash App / Sir Yeetus. best way to donate because the money goes directly to me. I'll be able to use it for various projects. And at the end of the stream, I'm going to show you guys the new series I will be doing on this channel. I know you guys going to be pretty hyped about that. Also, you can do super chat or super thanks. Any type of donation is greatly appreciated. Okay, but if you cannot donate, it is all good. I don't. It's not that important. I just need to get more art. That's it. Thanks to Rishi, I got a couple more artwork. So thank you, Rishi. I still don't like mushrooms. But let me go ahead and add the one, the only TFM. What's going on, man?
Just doing my thing.
Always. And I'm also going to add the Great Ghost. What is going on?
Well, I've been a waifu for the past week, so
Yeah, that Halloween stuff. Like, do you know how many people was like, "Hey, you should change your avatar. You should be a waifu too." I'm like, nah, that's not my style, bro. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that shit. But it is pretty hilarious. I'm seeing you. It was Chaz, Manic. I think just those three. No, and
Hermit.
Hermit. Yes,
Yeah.
changing your avatar to female characters. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, and yes, chat, there is a Yeetus waifu avatar. Yes, I have a couple of them.
I ain't doing it. But let's go ahead and start the conversation, shall we? So, for the past few months, a lot of dynamics has changed when it comes to the culture clash. But the biggest thing that I want to start with first is how the acronym MGTOW made it to Parliament in Canada, and with that situation, it caused a ripple, in my opinion, throughout social media about what this MGTOW thing is. And there's a lot of people out there that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, wants to put in their own interpretation of what MGTOW is, whether it's good or bad or blah, blah, blah. But regardless, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
I'll start with you, TFM. What do you think about that?
Well, so you got to understand, they have an us box and they have a them box, and they don't. The them box is just everybody who opposes us. Like, I use the political trichotomy. Let me just put up a little image so that you can, make sense rather than me just talk about it.
Oh, we're bringing it back up. Okay.
Well. So this is important because it shows the why people oversimplify when they're talking about the them box that they put everyone who opposes them into. There it is. Okay, sorry, it took me a second to find the chart I was looking for. All right. So, all right. This is. Let me make this a little bit too big. Let me shrink that down a bit. All right. So here's the political trichotomy. You have individual. Well, let's just say pro-freedom, pro-tradition and stability, and then there's pro-equality, and those are the 3 points of the triangle. There's nothing inherently evil or wrong about stability or freedom or equality. These are all desirable things to a point. It's just that depending on how you prioritize those three values, you're going to end up in vastly different societies. And when you belong to one of these three groups, and everyone belongs to one of these three groups, even if you're kind of in the middle, you still kind of lean towards one or the other. Like, nobody's 50-50, all the way. There's going to be some value, whether it's freedom, stability, or equality, that they more or less lean to. And here's the important part. If I go over here, we want to believe in a left versus right dichotomy, which is incorrect. And this is where the us versus them comes in. So the people who believe in tradition and stability, they call themselves the reactionary right. And according to them, everyone who isn't them is a leftist. They are, because they're degenerate. They want revolution. They want change. They want degeneracy. They don't believe in tradition and stability like they do. So they're all the same. So whether you want change because you're a radical Marxist, or whether you want change because you want freedom, they put people who want equality and people who want freedom in the same them box, because they're degenerate and they're anti-tradition. The people, now when you look at it from an individualist perspective, the people who believe in freedom, they have a less freedom, more freedom, bigger government, smaller government dichotomy. So this is why people who believe in freedom, they'll say that a communist and a fascist are the same, because to them, they both are big government. So whether you're a big government communist or a big government fascist, doesn't matter. You're big government. You want to take my freedom away. I don't see the difference between the two. Now, when you look at communism versus fascism, they actually are different ideologies. But from an individualist perspective, they're the same. They all go into the them box. And from the leftist perspective, who believe in equality, any kind of hierarchy or Darwinism or elitism or anything violates their equality. Therefore, you're the worst thing they can, the word they use is fascism. Everything is fascism to them because that's the only thing they can think of. That's the worst label they could put to somebody who's anti-equality is fascist. If there was a worse word, they just use that, but that's the worst word they can come up with. So the reason why, so I said all that to say this. The reason why the MGTOW gets lumped in with incels and women haters and rapists and rape apologists and all this other shit is because it's the them box. You oppose feminism, so it doesn't matter why you oppose feminism. It doesn't matter what your solutions are. You go into the them box. So they look at like a violent incel who's like and feels like, oh, no one will touch my penis, I'm going to go on a shooting spree, or they look at someone who has wants to rape women, and they look at a guy who wants to be left alone as the same thing, because to them you all oppose feminism, therefore you're all the same. So that's, and then because they put everyone in the them box, they enact legislation. Like there's actually two Democratic, I want to say congressmen, but they might be senators, but there's two Democratic members of the House and or Senate that are sending a letter to YouTube and Alphabet to crack down on incel content, which obviously it's just gonna. I feel bad for the guys who are still on YouTube, trying to like color within the lines and not piss Susan off. It doesn't matter. You're gonna get kicked off anyway because the feminists. Like I've seen my name in articles and academic papers. Like some feminists will write a. This is like recent too. They'll write a paper in the last year or so talking about violent incel spaces online, and my name will be in it. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, it's sex toy reviews. It's been sex toy reviews. But according to this retard who hasn't like done any research in the last 5 years, I'm advocating violent incel terrorism. But if you actually go to my YouTube channel, it's just sex toy reviews. I don't even talk about anything.
Well,
so yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, when it comes to modern women or women in general, when it comes to having some type of argument or debate or whatever, they tend to go to extremes, right? I'm not just saying just women do it, but I see it more in women. To prove their point, they'll put in very extreme scenarios to get their point across.
They're not this is why I don't like debating, because when you're debating someone, their goal is not to understand. Their goal is to win. And the way you win is by shutting your opponent down. So there's no room for them to actually listen to your arguments or consider your evidence, or they're not interested in learning or listening. They just want to shut you up. So the quickest way to shut you up is just to throw out an literally, this is from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. You just continually attack. So they're always on the defensive and they could never respond. They're always responding to your wild accusations, and you just keep attacking. And then use the fact that everybody's constantly attacking as further fuel. You say, oh, look, all these people are criticizing them. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There must be something there. It's like if 100 women falsely accuse you of rape, well, clearly you're doing something, because why would 100 women falsely accuse you of rape? The fact that they're all false doesn't matter. The fact that 100 women are doing it, that's what matters. That's proof of something. Because 100 women wouldn't just up and falsely accuse you of rape at the same time. So there must be something there. So you must be a dirtbag to attract 100 false rape accusations simultaneously. So they did this. You saw this with Trump. So Trump was under investigation his entire presidency From the day he was elected to the day he left office, he was under some type of investigation, and it was all bullshit. He was impeached twice over nothing. It
Shit,
was
he's
always
still under investigation today.
he's still under investigation. It hasn't stopped, even though he hasn't been in office for 2 years. He's still under investigation, and it's because they wanted him gone. So he didn't do anything. He's completely clean. If they had any dirt on him after 6 years of investigations, we would know it by now. So they don't have shit on him, but they're going to constantly investigate him, and they're going to use the constant stream of investigations as proof that he's a dirtbag, and the average person will believe it. Like, because it's just, who wants to be around someone or associate with? Look at the people, like Trump allies have had their phones taken, had their businesses broken into, had all their shit taken by the FBI. They didn't even do anything.
Agreed.
Like, this is the world we're living in, and it's very heavy-handed. Nobody's like, people talk about, oh, we're so divided. Yes, we are very divided. And that's not going to stop. We've kind of reached a terminal point. And the reason why we're so divided is because it's kind of interesting. The right, traditionally, because again, the right believes in stability. When the right is in charge, things are actually much more tolerant. But the left has basically been on the ascendancy. Well, especially it really kicked off with Obama. Obama was kind of the I don't want to say there's been so many watershed moments. You could say Woodrow Wilson or FDR or LBJ, but in the modern age, it really started with Obama. Because what Obama did is he weaponized the public sector unions, and he turned them into thugs to beat up protesters like Tea Party. Because I was there, I was part of the Tea Party back in like 2009 to 2012, and there were governments. They actually had it's called SEIU. It's a Service Employee International Union. They're literally the government employee union, and they were wearing their SEIU T-shirts while they were going around punching and kicking Tea Party protesters at rallies. Now, what you see whenever there's a big arrest of Antifa, they're teachers. I mean, yeah, you got your pedophiles and random ne'er-do-wells, but whenever they do like a big roundup of Antifa members, a lot of them are government employees and teachers. This isn't a coincidence. It's just that they stopped wearing their union T-shirts and now they wear, black hoodies and shit. But what Obama did is he weaponized the entire federal government against their political opposition. Not just, hey, vote for the left, but actually go out there and attack the right physically, and we'll protect you. Nothing happened to those union thugs who were beating up protesters. Just like nothing, whenever Antifa gets arrested, they get let go and all charges are dropped. Doesn't matter that they attack cops. It doesn't matter that they burn down businesses. It doesn't matter that they killed people. All charges were always dropped and they always got let go. But if you defended yourself, they threw the book at you.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty much going to be the purge in Chicago in 2023.
Well, but my point is that this really started under Obama.
Yeah.
And it kind of just, so Obama had 2 terms and then followed by Trump. And you notice when it was Obama, everyone was pro-government. They were the government employees. The second Trump became the president, they were fighting fascism because, oh my God, a Republican is president. We got to stop the fascism. So they just changed their uniform. And you notice now that Joe Biden is president, there's no more Antifa. They're all gone. Yeah. Now the FBI, here's the switch. Now it's the FBI going up and beating you up and arresting you for nothing. Like, so it's went from kind of an unofficial, like we're doing it, but we're doing it kind of like low key. Like government employees are beating up conservatives in public and nothing's happening to them. But now they're just sending the FBI directly to raid your house and steal your stuff and just harass you and ruin your life. It's just, now they're just having the law enforcement act like Antifa and Black Lives Matter or SEIU. So now it's directly the government. You could argue that when it was the SEIU or when it was Antifa or Black Lives Matter, well, that's not the government. I mean, yeah, they're being supported by the Democrats or being paid by various grants. Like all this money that goes to community activism or diversity, or they all go to these leftist groups. And you can prove this. When Trump allowed the government to be shut down, a whole bunch of protests were canceled because the protests need the grant money to pay for the protest. So when people on the right protest, they do it out of their own pocket. When the left protests, they get money from the government. All this all these 501c3s, they're all paid for with your tax money. All this money going to empower women and minorities. It's all going to these Black Lives Matter, Antifa bullshit. To basically, they're being paid to burn down your business and attack you and
Agreed.
protest you.
Agreed.
But now they're just sending the FBI. They're just sending law enforcement directly to you. Like, they're not using like middlemen. They're not even, like, the mask has been completely ripped off. Now they'll just send law enforcement itself to beat the shit out of you and shoot your dog and arrest you on bullshit.
Well, if the former president isn't safe.
Yeah, no, and so we're getting to the point. We're getting to the point. Now, the thing is right now, you look at you got to go back to the founding fathers. People like to they look at ancient history and they think it just happened overnight, because when you watch like a movie, you know how it like jump skips. There's like this war and then it skips and then there's another war.
Cram everything within like 2 hours.
Right. Every major world event can be completed in under 120 minutes.
Right. Now in real life, that's not how things work. So the founding fathers, between the Boston Tea Party and the Revolution, was 3 years. And what happened was, if you read the Declaration of Independence, they talk about this. After the Boston Tea Party, the king sent his soldiers to basically harass the colonists. And for 3 years, the founding fathers had sent letters and they've asked the king to stop, and they exhausted all their diplomatic channels. For 3 years, they tried to do things the peaceful way. And it was only when the king clearly wasn't listening and they were tired of his bullshit that they decided to do the thing. And so,
well, wasn't the shot heard around the world the tipping point? Something like that?
Yeah, well, you need two things. First of all, you need we'll just call them the right. Basically, for the right to do the thing, they need two things to happen. First of all, they need to exhaust sufficiently their diplomatic options. Like in less than 2 weeks, we're going to have our first election since 2020. So this will be, now if this election is secured the way the 2020 election was secured, that's going to be a major step towards checking that box. The right needs to feel like they've tried everything and either the system is too corrupt or the king isn't listening. Basically, there's no way to peacefully solve this problem. Right. Because either the system isn't listening or the system's too corrupt. You can't vote your way out of this problem. That's the first box that needs to be checked. Now, if this election goes off and the Republicans, there's a bloodbath and the Democrats get thrown out on their ass and there's actual change, then I think this can settle down. But
I heard they're sending various like security and stuff to the voting shit.
Well, this is like, midterm elections are usually very boring. And this midterm election, everybody's voting. There are people who are legitimately, seriously pissed off. And again, this is their first vote. This is the first election since 2020. And look at what's changed in 2020. Look at 2 years of COVID, lockdowns, and it's all bullshit. Right. Everything they told you was total bullshit. Now, I called it from the beginning, but it doesn't. People have watched. People sat helplessly as their elder grandparents were dying in a hospital alone, and they couldn't visit them. They couldn't see their grandparents' last hours because of COVID. It was all bullshit. Imagine your government ruining your life for years over provable lies. And they're not even slowing. They're just kind of pivoting from, oh yeah, sorry about the COVID thing, but oh look, Ukraine, oh my gosh, quick, we gotta give more money to this corrupt government that my son is part of the board of Burisma. Yeah, fuck you.
See,
and fuck you and your rent and your oil prices and your food prices. We got to send more money to Ukraine.
I want to touch on that.
All right.
When it comes to Sleepy Joe, right?
Yeah.
See, it's one thing that he openly threatened conservatives during that one speech, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
his V for
but
Vendetta speech, or D for
the,
dementia.
I don't know why the background was all red. That was fucking weird. But the fact that, in my opinion, the war could have been prevented to get to this point if it wasn't for Boris. I think his name was Boris. He personally visited Ukraine and said that, hey, we don't need to do any type of deals with Russia, blah, blah, blah. He pretty much convinced Zelensky to call off the negotiations.
It's worse than that. This war not only could have been prevented, Putin's been trying to start peace talks the entire time. In fact, he's already accomplished his primary objective. So originally he just wanted the Donbass. So very briefly, I know you probably already know this. We overthrew the government in 2014 when Biden was the vice president. The same people who are in charge of the Ukraine policy now worked for Biden and Obama in 2014. We overthrew the government. In 2015, there was something called the Minsk Agreement, where the government of Ukraine recognized the Donbass, which is the eastern part of Ukraine, which is it's ethnically Russian. They're very pro-Russian. They did not like that their government was overthrown. They didn't want to be part of this new government. They wanted to join Russia, but Russia told them, no, we'll work out an agreement. So they come out with the Minsk Agreement, where the Donbass was going to be self-governing, but still be part of Ukraine. And there's been basically a civil war going on since 2015 with the government, basically the Azov Battalion, which are neo-Nazis, going in there and killing the people in the Donbass since 2015. And the entire time they've been telling Russia to please help them because they're getting killed by their government. And this has been going on for years and years. And then Ukraine is like talking about joining NATO. And that was the red line. Russia's like, no.
I agree.
Hell no. Now, all they just wanted two conditions. They said, okay, you're going to respect the Donbass and allow them to be a self-governing thing like you promised in 2015, and you're not joining NATO. And they're like, no, absolutely not. So Putin took the Donbass and he's like, okay, now the Donbass belongs to Russia. So at this point, right now, Putin has already achieved his objective. He already has the Donbass. It's already been annexed into Russia. And there's nothing Ukraine can do. Like originally what happened was the original Ukraine army was about 200,000 men, and Russia sent in a force of about 200,000, give or take. So it was roughly equal. But then Ukraine conscripted all their men. So their force went from 200,000 to 700,000. And then they had a bunch of foreign volunteers slash mercenaries. And they had all these weapons pouring in them from NATO countries. So now Russia they're not fucking around anymore. Now they did the mobilization. They got hundreds of thousands of troops coming in. They got troops coming in from Belarus. They got the Iranian kamikaze drones. They are done fucking around. And now Ukraine is kind of like their days are numbered.
And it's funny how they say that, Russia is all these people are dying, the military is
it's
losing.
all propaganda.
I'm like,
for how many months have we heard that Russia's on its last leg?
The entire
Ukraine is
time.
winning the war.
The entire time.
It's if you just look at it objectively, you can tell that was bullshit. But unfortunately, look, this is what's crazy. We saw from 2020 to 2022 all that COVID propaganda. Constantly, endless COVID propaganda. The entire time the data was always available, but you were told this is what the experts are saying, this is what the government says. The same exact people who were using that giant machine of propaganda to push constant provable lies down your throat, they just pivot. This is what really disappoints me. I remember this moment. Remember the Canadian truckers. At the same time the Canadian trucker protest was happening, there was an American-Canadian, there's an American truck convoy happening too. So people were pissed off about the COVID lockdowns. They wanted them gone. They wanted the mandates gone. They were tired of this bullshit. And then the Ukraine war happened, and all these people who were all red-pilled and aware of the propaganda, they just suddenly believed the government again, as if these weren't the exact same people that have been lying to you for 2 years. It wasn't like, we talk, you look at old video of well, yeah, the CIA did a lot of fucked up things during the Cold War, but that was like the 60s and the 70s, and that was all the way back then. All those people are gone. There's been several minutes. These are the same exact people. 2020, 2021, it was last fucking year. The same people who were doing that bullshit are doing this bullshit. There hasn't even been a change of administration. No one was fired for lying to you and you pushing propaganda down your throat for 2 years. And yet everyone just goes back to believing it and swallowing the bullshit and accusing everyone who doesn't believe it of being like a Russian shill or a puppet of Putin.
Or
and then when like it doesn't matter though. This is the thing that it doesn't matter. Like propaganda, here's the reason why propaganda is important in the West is because of what happened in Vietnam. The way we lost the war in Vietnam was because of basically anti-American propaganda. The media and Marxists in the West were able to turn the public against the war, and we basically left Vietnam and allowed the Viet Cong to win. They weren't beating us in the battlefield. We won
agree.
but the public got sour to the war, and we pulled out and we let the South Vietnamese get massacred, and we allowed the communists to win. So it is important if you want the West to fight, you have to use propaganda to keep the people. So I understand exactly why all the pro-Ukraine propaganda is present, because you need the people on your side. You need the people rooting for you. Otherwise, it'll end like Vietnam, where the public will turn against you.
But
However,
TFM, I constantly say that the media is it's not nukes, it's not soldiers, artillery, etc. The most powerful weapon the U.S. has is the media.
But I disagree. No, so the media.
What's up?
The media is important for keeping the American people engaged and supporting of the war. So without the media, you lose the American people, you lose the war. But even with the American people support, which you could we all support Ukraine, well, viva la Ukraine. None of that matters if you're not winning the actual war. So Ukraine cannot win this war. And all the money we're sending them, all the weapons we're sending them, Russia's destroying them.
Oh, I agree with that. I was just talking about just the U.S. I wasn't talking about the Ukraine. I do agree with you when it comes to the pandering of the Ukraine bullshit. I do agree with you with that one, because there's no fucking way. If Russia actually went serious, I mean, like almost all out, let's say 70%, they will steamroll through Ukraine.
Well, there's no way, which is why, unfortunately, the next shoe to drop is going to be a false flag of a dirty bomb in order to get NATO to directly, basically, the U.S. and NATO want to enter Ukraine and turn this into a direct fight with Russia, because they know Ukraine, even with weapons and money, can't win. And they don't want to take the L. They don't want to admit they lost, because that's going to be the end of, essentially, that's the end of the American empire. Because the American empire is built on money and weapons. Like the whole idea is do what we say. Otherwise, we're going to find your opposition. We're going to give them money and weapons, and they're going to overthrow you.
All you had to do was mind your own business. But of course, no, we can't do that.
Well, no, because our entire empire is run on imperialism. So but that's the problem. If Russia wins and American weapons and money didn't win, well, then countries aren't going to listen to us anymore. Like if a country's like, go fuck yourself, America, and countries are already telling America to go fuck itself because we're losing in Ukraine.
Well, so hasn't there been a lot of activity from North Korea specifically now, kind of pushing that exact sort of, hey, fuck you, we don't give a shit about America, we'll launch our missiles wherever the fuck we want to.
Right? Well, they've always been that way, but North Korea is basically a subsidiary of China. So they're not really even independent. I'm talking like African countries, Ethiopia, Haiti. They're telling America to go fuck itself. These are like pissant countries that would never think, they'd never dream of standing up to America. But they're seeing what's happening in Ukraine. They're seeing that America isn't invincible. Like the Taliban kicked America's ass. Like they just sent them with their tail between their legs and took all their toys. And you're seeing all these toys, all the stuff we're sending Ukraine is just getting blown up.
No, so Biden made us look like a fucking idiot with that distraction.
Well, it's so much worse. Like, yes, this is where I can't remember who said it. I want to say it was JFK, or might have been, I think it might have been Ronald Reagan, actually, who said that weakness invites aggression. And when you put a demented pedophile in the White House, no one respects him. Nobody fears Biden. Nobody thinks Biden even knows. He literally shit his pants when he was visiting the Pope in the Vatican. He literally shit his pants.
He has an earpiece in his ear. He's not running the show.
So he's not. But you could see the weakness, and you saw what happened in Afghanistan was a signal to the world that America they don't need to be feared. And America went in with Russia. Like, if you remember the early days in Ukraine, when we did all of our economic sanctions, we kicked them off the SWIFT system. We seized their foreign reserves, just took their money. We started stealing the private property of Russian citizens who happened to be rich. We called them oligarchs. We literally just stole their property for the crime of being a Russian citizen.
Shit, we have oligarchs of our own.
Oh, of course. Like, imagine if I don't know, well, actually, you know, Elon Musk has a plant in a Tesla plant in China. What if something happens in Taiwan and China's like, oh, fuck your plant, it belongs to the Chinese government now? Like, people like, yeah, like, that's what we did. We did that. We just stole people's private property who they weren't part of the government. They were just rich Russian citizens who had yachts and stuff, but we just stole their shit.
It was us. It was Britain. It was
all. Yeah, it was
Spain.
Everyone. And then we also, it's so dumb. We basically prevented Russia from paying its bond interest. Russia had the money, and no one would take their money. And then we're like, oh, you defaulted on your bonds. Oh, the Russian economy is in free fall. But they had the money. They wouldn't take the money. So it's retarded. And then people are like, oh, the ruble is rubble. And it turns out actually the ruble is outperforming all the Western currencies. All the Western currencies are dog shit because of especially Germany, the UK, Japan. They're all like they're not quite hyperinflation yet, but they're getting there. And meanwhile, the ruble's fine. The ruble's doing fine. Fucking the peso is outperforming the dollar.
Yeah, female economist that Putin has, I forgot what her name was. She gets countless praise from Putin because she was technically the one that saved the ruble, the value of the ruble. She had to do like plan A, B, C, and D. Okay. Once again, gentlemen, I'm not saying that women are fucking stupid, okay? I'm just saying that they primarily base their decisions on feelings. But I will give credit when it's due. I forgot what her fucking name was, but she is the main reason why the ruble is staying afloat. She's in charge of various banks. I forgot what her name was. Oh my god. Yeah. But yeah, the ruble is doing just fine.
Well, this is actually something funny because like I play Warframe off and on. I remember early on in the conflict, Warframe said that they weren't going to accept money anymore from the Russians. And I'm thinking, how the fuck is that supposed to hurt the Russian economy? You're essentially preventing them from sending money out of country.
Shit, they took over all the McDonald's buildings, right?
Well, it was so dumb. So all they did was it was a complete shit show. And who did it hurt? Look at the German economy right now. You have companies that have been around for 150 years going bankrupt because of the energy prices.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have a cold winter.
They're fucked. Yeah. They are totally fucked. Like I see all these videos talking about how Russia's about to collapse or China's about to collapse. Nobody's talking about how Germany's about to collapse. Germany's. I'd be much more worried about Germany collapsing than China or Russia, but that's not part of the narrative. The narrative is we're going to keep sending money to Ukraine and keep sending weapons to Ukraine, and everything's great and everything's vote Democrat in November, and meanwhile, fucking Europe is in a stagflationary depression, and we have a no shit. We have less than a month of diesel. Because this is a funny thing, all that oil we're releasing from the SPR
was it 22 million? I think it was.
No, it was like 180 million barrels.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, it's only like 500 million in total. So we've drained it almost completely. Like it's never been this low since it started.
Well, like I told Hammerhand, why can't we just start, drilling and making our own pipelines?
Because
that's not what they want us to do,
Yeah, because the Great Reset and the climate change and the live in the pod and eat the bugs agenda. But here's the thing: all the oil so American oil is what's called light sweet crude, which is great for making gasoline, but you can't make diesel with it because it's not goopy enough. You need the really goopy stuff to make diesel, like the stuff from Canada, like the Keystone XL pipeline that Biden crushed as his first act as president with an executive order. That we could have really used some of that goopy Canadian oil right now to make that diesel, but we decided we're going to shut down the pipelines and we're going to drain our reserves of the light sweet crude, which can't be used to make diesel. So we have all this gasoline. We don't have any fucking diesel, and the rest of all of our allies in Europe, they're completely fucked. Their energy prices are through the roof, and they're using all kinds of schemes and all kinds of the governments are basically breaking the market to try to bring energy prices down. You have got Germany is nationalizing their industry. There's calls all throughout Europe to nationalize the energy, which is part of the plan.
So is that why they destroyed that one pipeline so Russia wouldn't use it as an ultimatum towards Europe?
Yeah. So the reason why the United States destroyed the Nord Stream pipelines was because there were already talks that week, people in Germany pressuring the government to make peace with Putin. Like the people in Europe are tired of this shit. Like they don't want to starve to death. They don't want to freeze to death.
Right.
They don't give a fuck about Ukraine. They don't give a fuck about the World Economic Forum's agenda, and they don't give a shit about climate change. They have a family that they would like to not die, and they're tired of watching all their jobs and businesses shut down because energy prices are too high over nothing. So they're protesting their own governments and NATO and the World Economic Forum and saying you unfuck this. And so what the United States did is we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline to basically remove it from the board, because even if the war ended tomorrow, those pipelines can't be turned on. So now there's no point in discussing it. We've already removed that tool from the board. So
TFM, it's allegedly.
Yeah, look, I don't. I'm not a fucking lawyer. I'm not. You can fucking. I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not gonna. You're gonna sue me for $1 trillion.
Oh man, no, I'm just saying.
Trillion.
Because you saw the conference of Sleepy Joe, right? Pretty much saying, yeah, we will destroy the pipeline.
Oh, look, it was absolutely. Well, not only that, other European countries have done their independent investigations about what happened to the Nord Stream pipeline, and they won't release the findings.
Poland.
Yeah, Poland, and I think Norway or Finland, one of the Scandinavian countries. So Europe knows who did it. They did their own independent investigation, but they're not releasing it. Now, if it was Putin or if it was, Russian, or why would they not release it? The only reason why they wouldn't release it is because it was the United States.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for Russia to destroy their own pipelines.
Of course not. Why? Because it makes zero sense.
Even I said this, if Russia didn't want to send gas to Germany, all they'd have to do is not send gas to Germany.
Just turn it off. So yeah, this basically, unfortunately, we're the bad guys. We're the bad guys. So it is what it is.
Well, same thing with the WMDs, right?
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I'm worried about. So this is the thing. Russia was talking about there was going to be a dirty bomb false flag, and the goal being there'll be a dirty bomb in Ukraine, and that'll be used as justification to have NATO and the United States enter the war, to basically make up for the fact that Ukraine is on the verge of losing. So now, and the thing is they originally they outed the plan, and they even went to the UN and gave the details of the plan. The details of the plan are more, I'm talking off the top of my head. So there's going to be a Ukrainian missile that's been mocked up to look like a Russian ballistic missile, that's going to be shot down, in air quotes, over Chernobyl. And the reason why Chernobyl is because while some people do live there, it's mostly avoided because of the fallout from decades ago.
Yeah, the radiation. Yeah.
Right. So not a lot of people live there. So it'll basically cut down on collateral damage. But when this ballistic missile gets shot down that's full of radioactive material, that'll be proof. Oh my gosh, Russia is launching a nuke. And we shot it down. Oh my God, Russia's escalated. And then the United States has already said that if there's any kind of radioactive attack in Ukraine, the United States is going to destroy all the Russian military in Ukraine and the Black Sea.
I still, I really don't believe. I don't know.
Let me pull the Band-Aid off. Let me just open your eyes. Nobody wins World War III.
Oh yeah, agreed. I completely agree. Like,
Russia has 6,000 nukes.
What's it
Russia
called?
could
MAD?
Yeah, it's called mutually assured. Well, if you look at who has all the nukes, like the United States has like 5,000 some nukes. Russia has 6,000 nukes. The rest of the world has like 20 nukes, 10 nukes, 30 nukes. You know, like
I think the next
China have a shit ton.
Yeah, China has only 200.
China's a couple hundred, but the United States and Russia have all the nukes, and Russia has more nukes than the United States does. Russia could cover the entire surface of the earth with nukes. So if you attack Russia, Russia isn't going to like this idea of, oh, we're going to have a conventional war, or we're going to fight until one side surrender. No side with nukes that can no one with a doomsday device is going to surrender. If you back them into a corner, they're just going to hit the doomsday device.
Putin said that himself. I agree.
Right. So that's part of Russian doctrine. So literally, there's no reason to have a conventional war. If it's going to end in a nuclear holocaust, why wait? So when the United States decides to stage a false flag and blow up all the Russian troops and destroy the Russian Navy and just attack Russia and sink all their assets so they can see, Russia's going to be like, Roger that, and just launch 1,000 nukes at the United States. That's only 1/6 of their nuclear arsenal. 1/6. They can destroy every square inch of the United States. Well, every man, woman, and child will be dead.
Would you say that it's still a scare tactic right now? Because I'm sure either side don't want to get to that point right now.
Well,
no, there are people in the United States, like the United States they think they could win this. They think that they can they think that if they just keep doubling down, that Russia will back down. They think they can threaten Russia enough that Russia will let them win despite them losing.
Oh, what'd you say, Gregos?
Well, that seems kind of weird to me, because I would think more so that the people who get to decide whether or not everything ends in nuclear hellfire, they don't give a rat's ass about the average citizen, but they do give a rat's ass about themselves.
Well, what about staying in power? You know, because
power. Staying in power is one thing, but if they get a shit ton of assets and then just get where the nukes aren't going to drop, I would think that's enough for them.
I don't know, but see, from my point of view, like you're not going to be in power if there's nobody to even rule over. If majority of the population is
if you go to the middle of ass fuck nowhere in some shit end country and you have a literal crap ton of the local currency or gold, you're gonna rule like a king.
Okay,
and but with the amount of nukes that will be shot up, I doubt that anybody in the world will be safe.
Here's a problem. The United States, they know, and I think General Milley, the army guy who's the memes of him with all the training colors, he was quoted as basically saying that if we lose in Ukraine, it's the end of he called it the rules-based democratic system we've had since World War II. I'll just call it the progressive empire. They know if they lose Ukraine, which they are losing, it's the end of the American empire. You have dozens of countries. So BRICS, just by the way, is kind of like the, not quite NATO or the EU, but it's similar. And it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so these were countries that would trade among each other so that basically they didn't care about sanctions and whatnot. Well, dozens of countries are joining BRICS because of, essentially, is what Biden did. By declaring economic war against Russia and seizing their foreign reserves and kicking them off the SWIFT system and going after their rich, the rest of the world was like, oh, fuck you. Like, why am I holding all these dollars? Why would I want to hold dollars as my reserve currency if the government can just seize them if I piss them off? And that's why the world, that's why China's dumping the dollar, Japan's dumping the dollar, everyone's dumping the dollar. despite the so-called strength of the dollar.
I agree. I knew it was going to be a bad time when I think it was earlier this year. Biden was trying to get in contact with Saudi Arabia when it comes to getting some gas, and they didn't answer. I was like, oh, this is not good.
They even so it's really the Saudi Arabian thing is very interesting because Saudi Arabia is they're considered a U.S. ally. In fact, that's why they don't get along with Iran. They don't get along with a lot of Middle Eastern countries. A lot of Middle Eastern countries hate Saudi Arabia because they're considered a Western ally. So Saudi Arabia is basically now they're not overtly doing it, but anyone with eyes to see can see that Saudi Arabia is moving away from the United States, moving towards the Russia-China alliance with the rest of the Middle East. So you're basically the West is losing all of Asia. All of Asia is moving away from Western influence, and it's Biden's fault. Like, you can't blame this on anyone but Biden. Like, him declaring economic war against Russia, seizing their foreign reserves. Like, you can't be the global world reserve currency and also weaponize that currency to try to squeeze countries that you don't like. Because we've never done that before, by the way. We're doing stuff to Russia we've never done to any of our enemies ever since World War II, when the modern empire was established. We've never done this before. So
in my opinion, if we lose the alliance with India, we
already have. We already have.
I thought we were still in alliance with them.
No. So again, it's slow. You gotta understand, like, global politics.
I didn't keep up with the India news.
So the global politics it's a game of balance. You don't want to just outright flip off the rest of the world and say, fuck you. You want to kind of like play both sides as long as you can. But it's very clear that India is siding with its Asian neighbors, which of course it would. Why would India, in the middle of fucking Asia, surrounded by the Middle East to the west, Russia to the north, and China to the east, side with Europe and the United States on the other side of the goddamn globe, and not with their immediate neighbors?
Well, I see what you're saying. I completely agree. I probably, like, once again, I haven't been keeping up whatsoever. I guess you can say it's the enemy of my enemy, pretty much.
Well, and again, this is bringing countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia hate each other, and yet they're united in fuck America. Like, now Saudi Arabia is still a quote unquote ally, but what's funny is, like, for the big thing they did recently was they decided to cut 2 million barrels from their production, which caused oil prices to go up. And the United States, it came to light later that they basically begged Saudi Arabia not to do this. Even told them, can you just wait till after the midterms? And they said, they just told him to go fuck himself and did it anyway.
Yeah, that's why Sleepy Joe got mad. Yeah.
And they're talking about, now they're pushing this NOPEC. So they're pushing a bill in the Senate called NOPEC. And what that does is that strips so OPEC is a cartel. If it were a bunch of private companies doing what OPEC does, it would be illegal and they would be arrested. But they're governments. OPEC is a bunch of governments, and no one has jurisdiction over them. You can't go, unless you want to go to war, you can't just go around telling other governments what to do. You don't have, your laws have no jurisdiction over other governments.
True.
So we can't do anything about OPEC. So what NOPEC does is, how you ever seen movies where some guy has diplomatic immunity? So you have people who, like, break traffic laws or run over hookers, and when the cops come to arrest them.
Here's the best example. What's that movie with Nicolas Cage? Lord of War?
Yeah, there's lots of movies that use that kind of trope of the guy with diplomatic immunity. Well, what NOPEC does is it strips OPEC of its diplomatic immunity in the United States. Now, all that really means is that they can sue OPEC in the United States, and they could find their U.S.-based subsidiaries, which they'll just sell. They'll just sell the U.S.-based subsidiaries and spin them off and get rid of them. It's like whenever a Walmart unionizes, Walmart just shuts it down. Like, if you unionize a Walmart, it's gone. Like, they actually pulled out of Canada because the Canadian government sided with the union. So Walmart said, all right, fuck Canada. And they just abandoned all their assets in Canada.
I remember that. When was this?
It's like the late 90s, early 2000s or something.
Yeah, I heard my dad talking about that shit. Yeah, that was fucking crazy, bro.
Well, that's so
Goddamn.
that's the thing. But Walmart does not fuck around when it comes to unions. That's
Yeah.
my point. So
Yeah.
in this thing is Saudi Arabia, they do have some US based subsidiaries. Like it's kind of like how car makers, they have a US based subsidiary that makes the cars for America. So all America would do with NOPEC is they would go after the US based subsidiaries, which they would just sell and bankrupt. And then all you've done is you've pissed off all the oil producers of the world. You've just declared war on them. And so we've already declared war on the second biggest oil producer in the world, which is Russia. Now imagine going to war against all the oil producers. At that point, so here's the problem. Even under Trump, when we were energy independent, there's no way we can be energy independent and also provide energy for the rest of Europe and Australia and Canada and all these other countries that want to go green and fight climate change. Like, so there's not, Europe, now that they've cut off Russia, they are completely dependent on OPEC. So all this bullshit of we're going to make OPEC, you have zero leverage. You need them, especially now. If you're going to say fuck climate change, fuck the environmentalists, let's drill. Well, then sure, you can. That helps America and Canada, but there's other countries like most of Europe. They can't be energy independent. They don't have the energy resources. They need to import them from somewhere. So someone has to produce enough energy. And even if like we told all the environmentalists to eat shit and we all started drilling like mad, one, that would take years. We're talking 10 years, 15 years to get all these refineries and storage facilities, all that shit. It would take years to do.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is you have, like, those energy resources are going to run out eventually. Like the fracking revolution, where we use water to kind of like get a lot of oil out of these like weird kind of out of the way pools.
Oil sand shit, yeah.
Oh yeah. So the problem is a lot of estimates about how long that oil would last have been overestimated. They're realizing that oil isn't going to last as much as they thought. Some of these wells will only last 5 years and then they'll be dry. So like the problem is now it's not like we're running out of oil, but we're going to run out of cheap oil. So we drill, baby, drill. And in 15, 20 years, all the cheap oil is going to be gone. It's going to be more and more expensive to get to the oil, as we have to drill deeper and deeper and have to come up with more creative ways to get to the oil. And it's going to get more expensive and more expensive. So it's like, I understand that there is a need for innovation and diversification and energy sources. But we're fucking up in every way imaginable. And the worst thing to do is start shit with the countries that you're dependent on for basic, like, it's like if there's a country that makes something you don't need, that you can just tell them go eat shit, some country makes some weird exotic fruit that you couldn't give less of a shit about. Like, yeah, go fuck yourself and your weird apples with eyeballs on them or something. I don't know. But we're talking like basic energy resources that you need, that are an input cost to everything. And declaring war on those countries and sanctioning them and cutting them off. That is, look at what's happening in Germany. Germany was totally dependent on Russian natural gas imports. And now their entire economy is in free fall. I saw pictures of, this isn't just Germany, it's also Poland. People were chopping up the bus station benches for firewood. They're chopping up any source of wood they can find, stacking firewood for the winter.
Oh, yeah, they got some candles and they're bringing back the oil lamps.
The problem with firewood is, particularly if you're cutting down trees in the forest, that firewood takes months to dry out.
Agreed.
If you chop down a tree and burn it in your house, you're going to create a shit ton of smoke, and you're going to get what's called creosote in your fireplace or your stove, and you're going to catch your house on fire.
I'm surprised I know about this, honestly.
Yeah, so you need to dry your firewood out, which takes like 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, that's 6 to 9 months that nobody has. So people are going to be burning, whatever, like not necessarily wet wood, but it's not going to be dry. and they're going to be burning it in their stoves, and it's not going to burn well. It's going to be very smoky. It's going to cause creosote in their chimneys. It's going to catch their house on fire. People will die.
Hey, Nicholas, what kind of tree you talking about? 2 years to dry. I never heard of
it. I don't know.
There may be a tree that does that. Like, honestly, it's kind of a thing that happens every single Canadian winter. There's always a power outage, and there's always somebody who puts their generator in their garage and then dies of carbon monoxide.
Well, and that's a problem. We're running out of diesel. Almost all the generators people have are diesel powered, which means your generator won't work. So if you're counting on your generator, because there's going to be rolling blackouts, so your government's going to turn your power off because there's not going to be, they can't afford it. And then, because the problem is they're fighting the inflation in the energy sector, not by increasing supply, but by using price controls. Well, when you use price controls, all that does is price is a rationing mechanism. When supply goes down and demand goes up, price goes up, and that basically self-rations those limited goods to the people who value them the most, by who are willing to pay the price. When you eliminate the price system, you simply have to ration through other means. So what they're going to do in Europe is they're going to do rolling blackouts, where they just turn your power off for several hours. I saw videos from Italy where they turn your power off and people are like lighting candles and stuff like that. Now, again, the problem is a lot of people are buying generators in order to basically you're going to turn my power off. Well, I'll just have my generator ready to go. What if there's no diesel?
Then you're fucked.
You're fucked. You have a fucking giant, $600 paperweight that can't do anything because you don't have any fuel for it because there's no goddamn diesel.
I heard about this happening in Africa, South Sudan or something like that, where they have numerous blackouts throughout the day. But I didn't know that it's going to be a thing in Europe as well.
No, I'm talking in the United States. We have about a month's worth of diesel left, and we are out of diesel.
US.
The United States is out of diesel. Europe is fucked. Like all these price increases we're seeing in Europe, they're coming to America. You're going to see your energy bill go up. You're going to see diesel shortages. Energy is globally traded. It's not just fuck Europe, but we're going to be okay. No, we're not energy independent.
Globalization.
We shut down our pipelines because we wanted to fight climate change and make all the retarded Swedish children laugh. And so now the retarded Swedish children are happy, and people are going to fucking die this winter because they're going to either freeze to death or they're going to set their house on fire because they don't know how to dry their wood, or they're using park benches to fucking burn in their backyard.
So TFM, would you say that the Democrats in general on Capitol Hill, they entangle themselves in their own web pretty much?
The Democrats are, so here's the thing. This is kind of like the dirty secret of democracy. The people who are actually in power aren't accountable to the people. The Democratic Party is just, they're there to kind of, the elected representatives aren't the people who actually have the power, because no one wants, let me back up. You notice how especially the Congress is supposed to be where all the power is, because the Congress, the House of Representatives, is the most accountable to the people. They have to run for re-election every 2 years. They have to answer to their local district. They're very close to the people. So
doesn't the power shift usually throughout the three branches? Throughout the time?
But the House of Representatives controls the spending,
right?
The purse strings. The reason why that's important is you want the level of government closest to the people to have the most authority, so that it's more answerable to the people, because the sovereign people. But what Congress always does is they empower the executive and they create unaccountable branches of government. That way their hands are clean. So they're like, oh, we didn't do it. It was the CDC. Well, who the fuck elected the CDC? Oh, well, the president appoints the head of the CDC, but they're all unelected. They're all unelected bureaucracies. So the representatives you vote for, they don't have any power. They don't even read the bills.
No, I saw those 1,000-page fucking bill.
Yeah.
They don't read that shit.
They're not. They don't write them. They don't read them. But they're the ones that you can vote in and out, but it doesn't really matter. The people who actually are controlling things are, what I and Mencius Mulba call the cathedral, which are like it's basically the progressive infrastructure. You have the universities, the media, you have all these nonprofit groups, you have all these think tanks, these foundations, the Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, the World Economic Forum, all these things. That's who runs everything. Those are the true leaders, and none of them are accountable to you. Nobody voted for Bill Gates. Nobody voted for Klaus Schwab.
Bill Gates pissed me off. I'm that's a different story, but he oh my god. I don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't liked him since Windows Millennium Edition.
Well, it's just like recently, I'm like, this motherfucker. But I'm gonna address this right quick. I would say
pounds, yeah.
Pound. Okay.
Pound
Thank
sterling.
you, Lord, Messiah, Disciple, for the donation. It is all in the name of depopulation. Personally, I agree. If people thought that Elon Musk is going fucking nuts, but I agree with him. Like various first world countries around the world, they eventually will get to that point, that tipping point, on where they cannot replace there will be more elderly people or around the same compared to the working class.
Depopulation is not so. Depopulation is a tool that is one of the things they're shooting for, but that's not what it's all in service. It's not in the service of depopulation for its own sake. Okay. It's in the surface of. I mean, you can call it neo-feudalism. It's just good old-fashioned. It's actual communism. Like, I'm not talking about theoretical communism. Like, well, if you read the Communist Manifesto, communism is just a big family where we all take care of each other with no money.
Okay.
Well, it's what does communism actually look like in practice? Not theoretical communism, not happy utopian bullshit communism. Actual communism practice. So let me.
Communism couldn't truly be.
Well, no. So right. So the way communism works in theory is you abolish private property and everything is collectively owned by the people. That's theoretical utopian communism. Now, in reality, what does that actually look like? When you abolish private property, who owns everything? Now you'd be like, oh, well, the people own it. Well, how do the people own it? By what vehicle do the people own everything? The government.
Yeah, the government owns it. Yeah.
The government owns everything. Now, when the government owns everything, that's not equality. That's not universal love and friendship. That's feudalism. That's when the Lord and his, like the king own everything and you're a serf. That's what communism always ends up in, because there's no other practical reason for it to be anything else. So that's what the World Economic Forum wants. They want neo-feudalism, communism, whatever you want to call it, where a small cadre of powerful elites who are completely unaccountable to the people own everything. And we're all their slaves. And they can kill us.
Who's the one that warned us decades ago? There was
the founding fathers warned us in the goddamn 1700s.
No, I completely
democracy
agree.
was a bad idea. Don't give women rights.
No, I agree. I was talking about this interview from this ex-Russian.
I forgot his name. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Fuck.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Though.
But I see who is it? Come on, give us the chat.
Oh, chat. You answered this before, chat.
Yuri Bezmenov. Yeah.
Okay, there we
are.
This guy right here.
Hey, real talk. Nice.
That's his name. I watched his the first part of the interview. I didn't know there was a second part, but I'm like, holy fuck! Like ever since because I'm a gamer, right? Like Call of Duty Cold War.
Yeah.
Ever since I watched the interview, I was like,
Command and Conquer, Red Alert.
He warned us. He warned us.
Oh yeah, of course. Shit. So, but here's the thing: if you go back to the founding fathers, they warned us. The founding fathers warned us not to have democracy. That democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There were philosophers in the 1700s in Europe. Like there was a Scottish philosopher who inspired Ben Franklin. They have similar quotes, but the original actually goes to the Scottish philosopher, saying that in a democracy, the people will simply vote for whoever gives them the most free stuff. Now, he phrased it as public largesse, but it's the same concept. When you have a democracy with universal suffrage, people will simply vote for whoever gives them the most stuff until the entire system collapses, and then it will end in a dictatorship. So we knew all of this in the 1700s. And the founding fathers, if you read the Federalist Papers, they said that we are not a democracy, we are a republic. And for 200 years, women didn't vote. We did not have universal suffrage. You had to be a landowner because there's no income tax. The landowners were the taxpayers.
So I do want to talk about that as well. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do want to talk about.
The problem is we had a system that worked.
Yeah, we did.
And then we lost wars. And that's the problem. The number one rule of history is never lose wars. And unfortunately, we lost a couple wars, and then the progressives took over. And since World War II to the current day, we are living under the progressive empire. But the progressive empire is broke. We spent all the money, we borrowed all the money, we printed all the money, and now we're all out of road to kick the can down. And now we're coming up to the end game where we either have hyperinflation. Well, we're basically gonna have hyperinflation. Like we could say we could have a depression, but we're not. No, we're not. We're gonna have hyperinflation. So we're gonna have hyperinflation. Now,
did we start in the Korean War or Vietnam War? When
we started after World War II. That's
World
when
War II is when it started.
That was when that's when the progressives took over. So let's look at it. So we'll call it you know how Rome had the Republic and then the Empire. You had like the original. Well, you had a Roman monarch. You had the kings of Rome, and then the Republic, and then the Empire. In the same way, America's had different phases. So originally, the founding fathers created a republic. We'll call it the First Republic. So the First Republic lasted until 81 with the Constitution, all the way to the Civil War. Now, when the Civil War happened, what they did was they abolished states' rights. Before the Civil War, states were sovereign. They were basically like European countries. So before the Civil War, America was like the EU, and the states were like the countries of Europe. They were sovereign states. They had a common currency, and they had trade agreements, and they had a common military, but they could do their own thing. After the Civil War, states' rights were abolished because the North didn't want the South to rise again. So we fundamentally changed from the United States with a federal government to one country with a national government. So states' rights were a joke. The last vestige of the First Republic is the Electoral College, which, if you've noticed, the Democrats want to get rid of because it's like in Star Wars. The last vestige of the old Republic must be swept away. Now, the Second Republic lasted from the Civil War until World War II. So it's basically between Woodrow Wilson and FDR. That was the end of the Second Republic. That was when they replaced this. So there was a national government as opposed to a federal government after the Civil War. But that national government was still it was recognizable as America. But starting with Woodrow Wilson and FDR, they completely threw out the Constitution. So if you've heard of something called the Living Constitution, this is a Wilsonian concept. What they did was, prior to Woodrow Wilson, if you wanted to amend the Constitution, there was a process where you could amend the Constitution. It was a constitution. We have 20 plus amendments. It's not that hard. So amending the Constitution was purposefully difficult, but possible. Well, the progressives didn't like that it was difficult to amend the Constitution. They wanted to radically change the Constitution, and they didn't like all these things getting in the way. So what they did was they replaced the Constitution with judges and their pronouncements. So if you notice, the Supreme Court, they always cite precedents. They'll always cite different legal cases from decades ago. On this Supreme Court in 1735, and this Supreme Court judge in 1764 or whatever, 1850, whatever. Like if you go to law school, you're going to learn a whole shit ton of case law. That's the Constitution now. The Constitution isn't the document that was voted on by the people and ratified by the states. The new Constitution is precedents by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court constantly rewrites and reinterprets the Constitution to whatever the government wants or needs it to be at the moment. And that started under Woodrow Wilson and FDR. And you can't say that is the same system. And that's why the Constitution doesn't mean a goddamn thing anymore. That's why various amendments get ignored, and the government can invent new rights and new powers for itself whole cloth that aren't anywhere in the Constitution, because the new Constitution is just the Supreme Court inventing shit.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that I knew that we were like completely fucked. Like I knew we were fucked, but I realized that there's no point. There is no point of return when they elected that one black female to the Supreme Court, whatever justice, whatever, and
I'm not a
she
biologist.
didn't know. She supposedly didn't know what a woman was. I'm like,
look, the problem is the far left, the progressives won. In fact, if you look at the early 20th century, both parties were progressive. The Republicans and the Democrats, they were both progressive. So the progressives overwhelmingly won, and they basically pulled the entire country in that direction. The system itself, the problem is if we're taught the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, we celebrate the 4th of July, but that country is dead. The country the Founding Fathers fought for, the country that we celebrate our independence on 4th of July, that country died 100 years ago.
Yeah, we're just a straight up empire at this point.
Yeah, we're the country, and what's fucked up is it's like you see this happening with the EU. The EU is trying to bully and essentially assimilate all these countries in Europe. This is what Hitler and Stalin tried to do, but they tried to do it with they tried to like overtly do it. The EU wants to assimilate and conquer Europe through bureaucracy because it worked in the United States. Like the progressives, they won a few elections and they fundamentally changed the country. They took our freedoms away. They took our rights away. They just straight up flushed the Constitution in the toilet, completely changed our system. Nobody voted for that. The people were not nobody was consulted about that. And nothing happened. The people did not rise up and slay them, because what they also did, which is kind of brilliant, by the way, as they were destroying the Constitution and taking our freedom away, they also created the welfare state.
Agreed. And so, did that base through FDR?
Yeah, well, yeah, it started with FDR. FDR created the Social Security Act, and then, of course, it got added to, and then, you have the LBJ creating the Great Society and giving money to single mothers, and then you got Obamacare, and now you got, it's just like the philosophers in the 1700s warned about. In a democracy, you're just going to get the people who promise the most free stuff until the money collapses and you have a dictator. So we're coming up on the end of that process. We're out of money. The first step is you spend all the money you saved, and then you borrow all the money you can, and then when no one will lend you any money anymore, you start printing money. So we're already at the end of that process.
Oh, our U.S. debt went so fucking high with Biden in office. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's over 31 trillion, and it'll be 35 trillion in a couple years. It's not even, we have $1 trillion deficit this year. Like, there was just a couple years ago, people were like freaking out about $1 trillion deficit. Now it's just a normal, another day at the beach. $1 trillion deficit here, $1 trillion deficit here. We've already passed the point of no return. There is literally no way we can pay this money off. There's only two things we can do. We can default on the debt, or we can inflate it away. And the way we inflate it away, now every country that's run into this problem have always tried to inflate it away, and it always ends in hyperinflation. So if you don't know what that looks like, look at Venezuela, look at Zimbabwe, look at the Weimar Republic. This happens over and over and over again. And it's going to happen again. And the thing is as sucky as it's going to be, honestly, I hate the progressive empire. What pisses me off the most is when I realized that the country I loved, I love the Founding Fathers, I love the Constitution, I love that system, to find out, because I also served in the military. I fought after 9/11, and to find out that the country I was fighting for was a lie, that the things I thought I was fighting for don't exist. Essentially, imagine living in the Dark Ages, and you were raised to idealistically look up to the Roman Empire. And you, in your head, you're thinking, oh, we're all Romans. We're all fighting for the Romans. We're bringing civilization to the barbarians. And then you find out after you're in the Legion that actually the Roman Empire is gone, and you're actually fighting for like this barbarian king of Italy who destroyed the empire, and you're just his bitch.
Hey, TFM, from veteran to veteran, believe me, I definitely that's some bullshit, bro.
So that
It's
is
some bullshit.
Well, so here's the good news is we do have time to prepare, which is what I'm basically focused on. And it's going to get really, really bad, and most of us aren't going to make it, and that's okay. We'll pour one out for those who didn't make it, and we'll build a better world.
Well, I hope I go out, get my eye poked out by an ostrich or getting beat up by a zebra. That'd be a pretty interesting way to go out, right? I think so.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
like, where did the zebra come from? And they just like stomps me to death.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like,
I know gonna die of something.
Getting blown up or getting shot or whatever it is. Nah, fuck that. I want to, somebody released an angry ostrich and somehow I found my place and just want to poke my eye out. Like,
I'm
when
definitely not
society
worried
collapses,
about that.
when society collapses, there's nothing keeping you out of the zoo and picking a fight with every single animal until something gets you.
Is that an elephant?
Yep. You just release all the animals. You could do like 12 monkeys and just release all the animals from the zoo.
Wait, I'm one of you. What are you doing?
Yep.
We're related. We're cousins. We're distant cousins.
Well, it's gonna be a shit show. And also, the zoos are almost always in major cities, and I strongly recommend being as far away from the city as you can. Like, you want to be as off grid as you can realistically tolerate. When shit hits the fan, the cities are going to be killing fields, because you're going to. So the grocery stores get cleaned out in a week, and obviously they're not going to bring any more food in because they didn't make any profit on the food that they had in stock. So there's not going to be any more food. So the grocery stores.
I'm noticing a lot of empty shelves in the downtown area.
Well, I'm talking like when shit hits the fan. The grocery stores are going to be completely cleaned out. There's not going to be anything.
I agree.
After, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, people are just going to start murdering their neighbors and taking whatever they have in their house. You're just going to see wholesale slaughter. 95% fatalities of the population of the cities just because there's no food there. Like, other than grocery stores, everything has to be imported into the city. And then if people in the city try to, like, well, let's go fuck up the suburbs, there's going to be a wall of guns. A wall of guns. It's going to be like Arkham City. With a fucking wall of guns where they will shoot anyone who tries to leave the city.
That's why I tell people to get fit and be prepared. Because once again, I'm prepared. I'm definitely prepared. Like, since I'm sure TFM is prepared as well, because we see this coming from a mile away. And we're going to continue to be prepared. This shit is no joke, gentlemen.
I'm not. You obviously, lose weight, get in shape, learn how to shoot a gun, and start a garden and all that basic stuff.
But also skills and getting the proper foods that can last for a long time.
I think that's one of the things I've been pivoting towards recently is investment advice, because I know people need money to do anything. Like, I can give you all this advice. Hey, why don't you go off grid or convert a van or move to another country, or what, all that shit costs a lot of money, and a lot of people don't have that kind of money. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So I'm trying to help people make money. You can make money in this climate. It's very, very difficult to make money in this environment because stagflation is a bitch. And also, it's not just the stagflation. The government is actively manipulating the markets, not just because it's the midterm, but also just in general. Like, look at like Europe, they're nationalizing shit. They're instituting price controls. It's a pain in the ass to try to make money in this market. You can do it, though. It's just very difficult. And it is what it is.
Question, TFM. So, like, I keep throwing this around, and then it'd be nice to have someone else either tell me whether I'm full of shit or whether I have a point.
Okay.
But with shit hits the fan, I keep thinking, It's going to be these smaller areas that are hit first, not the cities, because those are going to be the places where fuel stops being delivered first. And that'll be the first stage in the collapse of the pipeline, like the supply chain, which will, of course, extend to food.
Well, we're talking about like the end of like the
Society as
government.
we know it.
Yeah, we're not talking about just stagflation or shortages of oil. We're talking about like 911 doesn't work anymore. Nobody's coming to save you. Like, look at Venezuela, look at Weimar Republic, look at Zimbabwe. The best place to be is in like a remote village.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it's not going to be the best place. I'm thinking, like, how exactly is it going to occur on a day by day basis? Because it's not going to be one day the supply
you
chains are fine, and then the
you
next
want to
day everyone is fucked equally.
you no you want to be self-sufficient. So here's a problem: it's almost impossible to be self-sufficient in a city. It's impossible. You might be able to grow a tomato plant on your balcony, and that's about it. You can't have like if you live in the suburbs, you probably could have chickens and you could have like a garden. You can collect rainwater. Like there's things you can do to be reasonably self-sufficient. Now, that's not going to feed you for a year, but it will help you. Like most of the deaths will happen within 6 months. Now, if you overstock your pantry and you have a garden and you collect rainwater and like just reasonable stuff, you could make it 6 months and you'll basically outlive most of the people. Most people will be dead within 6 months. But if you live in the city, you're fucked. Like my advice to you if you live in the city is convert a van or a camper or something like that, and just live in that. You can shower at the gym and you can whatever. You'll save money too. If shit looks like it's getting bad, just drive away. Be
Agreed.
100 miles away. If you're wrong, if it's a false alarm, you could turn around and come back. If you're right, you just saved yourself, because if you're stuck in the city, like if the roads get shut down and bottlenecked because of traffic jams or the bridges are shut down and you're trapped in the city, you're dead. Your only chance you have is to basically abandon everything and just disappear into the woods with nothing but the clothes on your back.
I agree,
Like
TFM. I agree.
there is no, like, you could try and like rationalize it that you're safer in the city because
So,
we have ports and we get more.
oh,
No, you are
God, no,
dead as fuck.
Oh
You are
no.
dead as fuck.
no,
Just
like,
look at Venezuela. I invite you to just or talk to someone. Like look, some guy wrote a book about what was it? There was a country that basically collapsed during a war. I think it was Yugoslavia. Like this guy who was basically living in Yugoslavia after the war collapsed the government. And everyone was it got real. It got full on. It got real quick.
All the feminists disappeared. You
Although
know.
you're not. Here's the thing: when shit hits the fan, feminism, you will giggle to yourself about how little of a shit any of that matters anymore. Like purple-haired feminists bitching about patriarchy and the male gaze. That will be a nostalgic, like you'll be nostalgically remembering the good days when that was the worst thing you had to worry about.
Yep, agreed. All these Venezuelan women, they went up and traveled through Central America, and a lot of them they settled in Colombia and various parts of Mexico to be streetwalkers, right? Not
oh,
not,
I have
not even
this.
for money, for food.
Or
Food.
they or if they were single and didn't have a family, they would just look for a boyfriend or a husband
Yeah,
that
that's
would,
a yeah.
they take
Well,
care of them.
It's usually the single
even
mothers walking the streets. I agree.
like my understanding of like Mao's Great Leap Forward was that most of the casualties came from the cities. So I'm not saying that the
Absolutely.
cities will at all be safe. I'm just trying to think like how will this play out day by day? And I'm pretty sure that like it's going to be
You
more
don't
so your proximity because
know.
eventually
There'll be crazy
No.
motherfuckers breaking down doors
Yeah,
you
you're talking of now. Yeah, when like if you're living in like the suburbs, like right outside the city, and the problem is you have to become self-sufficient. It's easier to be self-sufficient if you have room. So living in the suburbs or even on like the rural areas where you can have a small farm, some chickens, shit like I'm not talking about like become a full-on farmer with cows and shit, but just buy some chickens.
I do
Chickens.
like
So
me some
chickens are
chickens.
well, chickens are like so you know how Klaus Schwab wants us to eat the bugs. So
Ugh.
chickens are a machine. Think about this. Chickens are a machine which turn bugs into eggs and nuggies. Like no one wants to eat. Everyone loves chicken nuggies, but no one wants to eat bugs. But chickens turn bugs into nuggies.
Agree. I see this
They're they're
one
they're like a
channel feeding
magical
wasp
right.
larvae to chicken.
Right, you don't eat the bugs. You feed the bugs to the chickens, and the chickens turn those bugs into eggs and nuggies.
Yeah,
That's
rabbits
that's the
too. Yeah,
secret.
rabbits is a
Well,
good one as well.
yeah, and if you can afford cows, well, the cows are even better because they could turn grass into milk and beef.
Cows, man. Shit, you gotta find like a certain territory so they can.
Right. So that's the thing. Like cows
Yeah,
are one of those things you actually need rural land to have cow like pastures, but anyone can have a chicken coop as long as you
true.
don't live in the city, or if you live in like the suburbs and like an HOA or something. But if you live in like a reasonable area, you can have a chicken coop, you can have a garden, you can collect rainwater, you could be reasonably, and if you overstock your pantry and learn how to can and shit, like you could be reasonably self-sufficient. You don't need
Yeah.
to be full on, you don't need a doomsday prepper bunker. You don't need to
Well,
be a farmer. You just need to be reasonably self-sufficient to outlast. You need 6 months. If you can last 6 months, you will be in the 20% that don't die. Like most people will die in the first 6 months.
Agreed.
I
Oh,
guess here's the thing, because like I see a lot of the problems starting with a fuel shortage. So to
No,
me, no.
it'll start. It'll be the power grid. Look. It's like it'll happen all at once. It's not just going to be a fuel shortage, and then weeks later it'll hit food, and then weeks later it'll hit. No, everything will go down at the same time.
Oh,
You're going to see there won't be any gasoline, there won't be any energy, there won't be any food.
especially if our enemies want to pull a EMP type bullshit.
well,
If they
because
don't
like
want
I
to
was
destroy
thinking
us,
that like the most rural and remote communities, like they'd be the first ones to, like their gas stations wouldn't be restocked first. Am I incorrect in that assumption?
if sure, like they won't be restocked first, so they run out of gasoline. But if there's no power and societies collapse, there's not going to be trucking. Like, think about. I mean, again, I just look at. You don't need to think hypothetically. Look at other countries that have had governmental or societal collapses.
uh,
It's not a gradual process. It's your shit's gone. It's all gone.
Ukraine and Venezuela is
Or Venezuela
big,
again,
big ones.
Venezuela, the Weimar Republic,
The
when you have
Ukraine had to go to war.
well,
Everything.
what happens? You have hyperinflation, societal breakdown, governmental collapse. Now, Venezuela is still hanging on. The irony is the reason why Venezuela is still hanging on is because they're a small country and they're under the unofficial jurisdiction of the United States. Like anything happens in South America is because America allows it to happen. America won't let something happen in South America that they don't want to happen. So if Venezuela did what normally happens in the situation where they start like full on civil war genocide, the United States would intervene. So Venezuela is in this weird kind of limbo where the government is still there and the country's still limping along with the hyperinflation because if they start genociding it, if they have a full-on civil war, then America intervenes. But if without America being big brother and watching over South America, it would have gotten a lot more bloody and a lot quicker, and then it would have at least ended. The pain would have ended once the civil war / genocide was over. So the thing is when that happens to the West, there's not going to be a country like America preventing that from happening. You're going to see civil wars and genocides everywhere. Everyone's because that's it. That's how things are. Like when shit falls. Think about. I'll break it down this way. We have what 6 billion people in the world, 6 7 billion, whatever the world population is. If you look at historically, The globe has only sustained about 1 billion people historically. The only reason why we can sustain a global population of 6 or 7 billion is because we have global trade, and we have shipping, and we have specialization where different countries produce different goods, and they all trade with each other. If all that went away because the global order collapsed, 6 billion people would die, because there simply isn't enough resources in their countries to support the population without all this trade. So we're talking about like 5/6 of the world population starving to death within the year. And they're not going to go quietly. Like, if there's not enough food to go around because global trade has collapsed, because the countries have collapsed, it's not like people are just going to be sitting on their ass reading their Bible waiting for Jesus to take them. They're going to be murdering each other to try to be in that surviving minority.
Well, I guess the question at that point is, where are they going to be? Because it's not going to be 5/6 equally distributed across the globe. It's going to be, some places are going to have 90% casualty rate, other places are going to have 60% casualty rate.
Well, okay, it's not really location based. It's basically communities versus non-communities. If you have a strong community, and you can basically put up a wall of basically, so when there's no police, there's no government. If you have a community, you can come together and support each other, then you are the government. And so I'll give you an example. During Hurricane Katrina, when the levees broke and New Orleans flooded, the governor, or not the governor, it was the mayor. I don't remember, some government official.
Damn, I was muted the entire time. Hold up. Okay. TFM. Speaking of communities, how many communities are truly strong communities in the US that are left?
Very few. They're usually.
Damn. I was muted the entire time. I feel fucking stupid. Okay.
But I'll give you a small example. In New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, I want to say the mayor, it might have been the governor, I might be misremembering. He used the gun license registration to basically send cops to take the guns of people because of looting. So what's happening was, there are these people who were basically holding back the looters with their guns. And the police came like, oh, thank goodness the cops are here. And the cops basically took their guns and then left. And then the looters came and stole their shit. Now, once people started realizing the cops aren't coming around to help you, they're coming around to take your guns, the people started drawing guns on the police. And so you had, a small group of cops going around collecting guns. But when they went to go, there was this one kind of neighborhood, they went to collect the guns. And everybody drew a gun on the cops and get the fuck out of here. And there were like a dozen plus guys. And so the cops basically fucked off and left them alone because they were outgunned. And nothing happened to them. Like, they were in the right. And, the mayor or whoever admitted later that he shouldn't have done that. The point is, though, in the moment, it's who has the guns, and also who has more guns. So if you have a small group of a half dozen people, that's better than just being alone. But having more is better. So if you have a group of 50 people or 100 people, that's even better. If you have a community of 100 plus people, and I'll give you an example of the United States. So you have people like to bring up like Waco or the other Ruby Ridge or something. Like, there were like 100 people at most, a couple hundred people at most. So if you're like stacking weapons and you're like a paramilitary group and you're a couple hundred people, the government will murder you. They'll just fucking shoot you and burn your shit down and kill your family. They don't give a shit.
Well, they'll admit that they're at fault, 60 years from now.
Yeah, they'll cry crocodile tears at your funeral. They'll hire a professional crier to go on CNN and say he's sorry. Anyway, then you compare that to like the fundamentalist Mormons that have compounds and they like marry little kids and stuff. Their leader is in jail. He was on the FBI most wanted list. But you notice they didn't go in and burn their shit down. They didn't go in there and murder them all and burn all their compounds down. They just had their leader arrested, and they were very careful to do so. And it's because they have tens of thousands of members.
Did they give him a Big Mac?
A Big Mac?
I'm just saying, when it comes to people that does a bunch of shootings and shit, or they're dangerous, they tend to, I don't know. I've seen them treat them very nicely, especially.
It's a numbers game. I'll give
Right.
you I'll give you another example. During the COVID lockdowns in the middle of New York City, the most liberal blue of the liberal blue places, the Orthodox Jewish community just ignored the lockdowns and did whatever the fuck they wanted. And when the police came to like arrest them, they started pelting them with rocks and dirty diapers, and they found out who ratted them out and they beat the shit out of them. And
So
no one did it. No one did a goddamn thing. Like the mayor of New York was like, "We're going to stop the Orthodox Jews from." They aren't going to do shit. There's too fucking. It's all a numbers game. So if you have a couple hundred people in your little cult, the government will murder you. If you have tens of thousands of people, the government's going to leave you the fuck alone. As long as you're not like trying to overthrow the government, as long as you're not like starting a civil war. If you're just if you want to be left alone and you're just doing the thing, and they're going to leave you the fuck alone because there's so goddamn many of you. Now they may send cops. There, Halsey, my co-host, he lived in Israel. He has this really funny story. So there's a place in Israel where the ultra Orthodox Jews live. They call it like Jewish Iran because they have like modesty laws and everything. And so these Jewish feminists decided to wear like skin tight tracksuit, like skin tight jogging suits. You know, like women with their little yoga pants and everything, and they were going to jog through this ultra orthodox neighborhood to stick it to the patriarchy. And so what the ultra orthodox Jews did is they threw rocks and dirty diapers at them. And so the feminists cried to the police came to investigate, and what they did was they took dumpsters, they boxed the cop cars in, and then they lit the dumpsters on fire, and they threw rocks and dirty diapers at the cops until they ran away.
I'm
They
not
don't give a
surprised.
they don't give a shit. They fight like they are like basically you have these neighborhoods that are either like they could be Jewish neighborhoods, they could be Muslim neighborhoods, they could be whatever neighborhood. When you have a strong community, the cops just leave you alone. And the cops that do work that beat, they're your guys. Like when the police want to have cops patrol your neighborhood, you put your guys in that department to be those cops. The
True.
judges, the cops, the local politicians, the mayor, they're all your people. And that neighborhood is untouchable. You control the whole system, but this all has to be done bottom up. You can't impose this. And if anyone fucks with you, if the government tries to fuck with you, you fuck with them back right back. And if you're big enough, we're not talking Ruby Ridge or Waco, we're talking like tens of thousands of people. They're not going to fuck with you.
I see what you're saying, and I definitely agree. You know, the bigger the community, the less likely the law enforcement will try to fucking corner
Yeah,
you.
and let's say worst comes to worst, the government collapses, it's pandemonium, rioting, whatever. Those communities are just going to turtle in. It's going to be like fucking 300, where they're going to have like a wall of their young men with weapons, and they're going to double dog dare you to fuck with them, and they're going to fuck your shit up. And because who's going to fuck with them?
They're
Like,
not.
yeah, if you're talking a solid community of tens of thousands of people, and they have their own internal stuff. They have their own hospitals, their own grocers, their own like everything. They have everything they need. They have their own little mini society.
That's similar to Alaska. Alaska had that one shit. It was like this one huge building that literally has everything that the community wanted, like hospital, school, grocery stores. It's a gigantic building, but I say that if I had to deal, let's say that if I'm trying to rate a community, if I had to deal with a community that had that type of bond, I'm not gonna be it's not gonna be a good time for me because they will I guarantee you they will literally fight tooth and nail
Yeah.
From outsiders.
Yep, and they will fuck your shit up. It'll basically be because there are countries like you see like really small countries like Liechtenstein. You know, they have the population of these communities. They're a sovereign country. And when the government collapses, all countries are basically agreed upon community arrangements. So if the government collapses and we have balkanization, you're basically a micronation.
Right.
And you basically, however your leadership is worked out, that's how it is. And whatever comes after this, they're going to recognize that. They're going to be like, oh, hey, I guess you're the king of this area. You want to join us, and we'll recognize you and make it official, and you'll be the mayor, governor, king, whatever bullshit system comes in after this. And then there you go. And then it's that simple.
Well, TFM, I have one more question. I really do want your input on this because
All right.
I know that you have been on YouTube and stuff, and you've been doing your own thing. But when it comes to the quote unquote manosphere, right? How do you feel? How do you feel about the shit ton of women and PUAs flooding the market right now?
It's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not that women and PUAs are flooding the manosphere.
Okay.
It's that the censorship has driven away all the non-PUAs. And then, so if you're a MGTOW channel that talks about male sovereignty and self-actualization and philosophy or whatever, you've already been shut down and driven off for hate speech. So 90%, like 90% of MGTOW channels are either they dropped the acronym, they've kind of dropped out, they've completely changed their format. Like, I'm just a humble sex toy reviewer now. I don't even talk about MGTOW stuff on YouTube. So all the golden age of MGTOW is over because of censorship. It's not because PUAs and dating coaches won the debate. It's because YouTube deplatformed MGTOW. They declared MGTOW a hate movement, and they got rid of all the MGTOW channels except for the ones that were very milquetoast and really tried not to offend anyone and avoid saying the gamer words and whatnot.
But then when you try to speak some sense into them, like, wait, so you tell me that I'm an extremist, you're going to compare me to Al Qaeda because I want to be single?
No one reaches out to want an explanation or to let you say your piece. When I get kicked off of platforms, they don't even tell me why. They just give me a boilerplate, due to the nature of your content, we're closing your account, go fuck yourself. And that's it. That's all it is. It's just a, have a nice life type of thing.
But then they have these new groups, right? Especially the groups that hasn't been around long. Like, they immediately get 100,000, 500,000 subscribers within 6 months, right? Because they regurgitating everything that TFM and the OGs has been saying since what, 2014, 2015.
Well, I assume you're talking about like Andrew Tate. So think about Andrew Tate.
Yeah, Andrew Tate.
So here's the thing: Andrew Tate, he got big on TikTok, because TikTok is more like, if you notice, YouTube is just becoming cable. Like, the channels they're recommending are all like big cable channels like CNN and whatever, like mainstream media. If you want like the old, like the old YouTube, where it was like organic people just filming shit and making funny dance videos, that's all TikTok now. So Andrew Tate, he got big on TikTok. And once he got too big, they went after him. Like, Andrew Tate got kicked off of everything. So Andrew Tate's actually not a good example of what you're talking about, the women and the PUAs.
But what about these recent channels? I don't know if you heard about, let me know if you haven't heard about these, such as Just Pearly Things or Femme Sapien. I don't know if you heard about them, but they're pretty big on YouTube right now.
Sure.
And right now, Femme Sapien was riding on the red pill carousel, and recently, when she reached, I forgot how many subs, she has a lot of subs, all of a sudden she's trash talking the very same philosophy that she was riding on. It was crazy.
Well, look, women are always going to be promoted, because we live in a guncentric society. But I think this is really a product of the censorship. So I've been censored. A lot of the other, Terrence Pop's been censored. The only people who aren't being censored. So the only way to stay on YouTube, the only way to avoid the deplatforming, the censorship, is you have to keep it very, very surface level. You can talk about dating. You could talk about, women, their standards are too high and they're fat, or that's fine. Like very surface level stuff, you can complain about that. But if you dare take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture and look at the bigger forces at work, or you start talking about solutions, then they shut you down. And again, look at Andrew Tate. He got shut down too. Even though he was like a big TikTok star, and they went after him hard.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah, even the women, they say, "Oh, I hate Andrew Tate. He's a misogynist." Blah. But as soon as like, hey, okay, what did he say that was so misogynist? They don't know.
Well, he criticizes feminism. But my point is, so Andrew Tate, he's not I kind of wrote him off as a PUA dating coach. I wasn't familiar with his
Yeah, he's a
content.
grifter. Yeah, we're not going to deny
Well,
that.
but it's fine. Here's the
He's
difference.
honest about it. Like,
Well, but here's the difference. So, I mean, I've been talking about investments since I started my channel in 2015. That's like my background.
right.
So when I'm trying to help people make money, I actually know what I'm talking about. I think Andrew Tate made his money as a kickboxer and probably with crypto. He doesn't know shit about making money. So, like, what could he realistically do to try to help men make money? He doesn't like you got to know to teach. He
So
doesn't
what about
have
that
any.
university that he was talking about that he
It's
has?
basically like drop shipping and Amazon bullshit. Like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but like most people don't know what the fuck they're doing. So I can't really hold that against him, because if you made your money being a kickboxer and maybe you got lucky riding the crypto bubble the last couple of years, well, how are you going to translate that into something? Like you clearly can't ride the crypto bubble anymore. The bubble's burst. So if that was where you made your money, I mean, congratulations on your luck. Good job riding that bubble and not getting burned by it. But you don't have any knowledge to teach. Like imagine someone who got rich riding a bubble and then wrote a finance book. Like, let me teach you the secrets. What you do is you wait for a big bubble where everything's going up 1,000% a day, and then you buy and then you sell before it crashes. End of book. Like that's not knowledge you could use in any feasible way to actually better yourself. So as far as the grifting and that kind of stuff, it's like if you're going to someone like Andrew Tate for business advice, you've already missed the boat. He doesn't know shit about business.
But he loves to brag about, oh yeah, I made this person this much money, that much money, and blah 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 blah. He loves to brag about that, like 24/7.
Right. So, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, you can make money, selling stuff. Like everyone's got something to sell. It's fun. My point is, I would say Andrew Tate isn't as bad as like a lot of these dating coaches and PUAs who are like selling these seminars and shit like that.
Yeah, I
Because
don't
there's
think
stuff.
he's evil. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he doesn't know shit about money. But he's pretty red pilled. Like people sent me clips, and he sounds like me sometimes.
He
Like he'll
became
say,
Muslim recently.
well, and also I think him being targeted and being, because once you've been deplatformed and survived, it's kind of freeing, because everyone's terrified of being deplatformed because they're worried that if they get deplatformed, they're going to lose their entire audience.
Yeah,
And so,
Andrew Tate became bigger when he became
right, so
canceled.
when you get deplatformed and your audience stays with you, and you're actually like, oh shit, I can keep doing this. Well, then you're like, oh fuck you, I'm gonna like take the fucking muzzle off now, fucking live and uncensored, motherfucker, because now you're free. You don't have to worry. You don't have that sort of Damocles hanging over you anymore, where you're going to lose your YouTube channel if you say the wrong thing. You can say whatever the fuck you want because you've already been deplatformed and you survived. But not
Man,
everyone can do
hopefully I
that.
get to that point one day.
Yeah, but a lot of people, they get deplatformed and that's it. Like they lose 99% of their audience, and they just realize, oh shit, I'm done. I gotta go.
Oh, TFM. Some people talked. Honestly, people did talk to me about what you said before in the past about people are too lazy to create old accounts.
Yeah, they are.
I'm like, you know what? TFM has a point, right? Like, if you're gonna have some type of audience, which I do have, right? Like, it's not as big, but it's whatever. You should branch out, especially the nature of YouTube. Why are you
Well,
just waiting until?
I notice you no longer have a PayPal, so congratulations on that.
So I had the benefit of the doubt until I heard about the 2,500
Yeah,
craziness.
you hear about how, but so yeah, if you don't know, those of you who are out there, PayPal was like, oh, if you're spreading misinformation, which I'm sure will include hate speech, saying that like, oh, you're saying men are better than women. Oh, that's misinformation. Everyone knows women are better than men. So they're going to fine you $2,500. And even if not just out of your balance, they'll fine your bank account. So let's say you don't even have a balance at PayPal. If you've linked your bank account, they can fine your bank account. Now, when that first leaked, they're like, "Oh no, that was a mistake," and they took it out. Oh, that was some intern accidentally put that in. They just put it back in. Like they basically took it out for a week and then put it back in, hoping no one would notice. So fuck PayPal. Fuck PayPal right in its ass.
It is a slap to the face. Like honestly, who the fuck are you, this company, to dictate whether what I say is misinformation or not?
What it is, it's not necessarily the companies directly, it's the government. The government is trying to use these private companies to create an informal social credit system that they can then formalize later with central bank digital currency. So they're going to use PayPal to kind of it's like they're going to tickle your butthole a bit and lube it up before they fuck you. They're going to give you a little. They're going to jerk you off for a few seconds, get you nice and aroused. Then they fuck you in the ass.
Did
So
they
that
try to do that twice though with the 2,500? Like they removed it at first.
yeah, they removed it because of the backlash and they put it back in less than a week later, hoping no one would notice. So, but the thing is these companies, they're doing it because the government is telling them to do it. It's just mostly a Democrat thing, but I wouldn't put it past the rhinos to go along with it. They're using this kind of it's like they're calling it a loophole. So you have a First Amendment right to say whatever the fuck you want, and the government can't do anything. So they're using private companies that are partnering with the government to censor you and to fine you, to take away your First Amendment right to free speech. And then they've put it in the public consciousness that, oh, that's okay. Because it's not the government doing it, it's the government and the corporations doing it. And that's totally different. So when the government and the corporations infringe on your rights, that's different than the government infringing on your rights. Except, no, it fucking isn't. Because the government they're using like this silver or lead argument with these corporations. For example, like look what's happening with Twitter and Elon Musk. So you saw there's a Joe Rogan episode where Mark Zuckerberg was on. He straight up said that the FBI came to him personally and told him about the Hunter Biden laptop story and
I
told
have
him
seen
not.
that.
Yeah, said don't run it. It's misinformation. Don't run the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, it was completely real. It wasn't misinformation. It wasn't a Russian psyop. Hunter Biden is a crackhead pedophile who has a whole bunch of damning evidence on his laptop. He was too fucking high and didn't pick up at the laptop repair store, and it fell into the wrong hands and it got exposed, and it's full of all kinds of incriminating bullshit. And it was right before the election, and the FBI went around lying. Now, this is when Trump was president. It's not like they were doing it on behalf of the administration. They were doing it on behalf of the Democrats who weren't even in power. And they were basically lying to the social media and telling them, do what we say. Now, there wasn't a threat, but the thing is you've heard of the platform versus publisher argument. There's like an article, I think it's section 230, if memory serves. I might be misremembering, but there's a section which provides legal immunity to platforms, but not publishers. Now, you notice these social media companies are acting like publishers and not a platform, and so they're technically violating this section, and they can be held liable for what because they're basically engaging in publication and not a platform, so they shouldn't get this legal protection. However, because they're doing the business of the government is telling them to do this. Nobody's charging them. Just like when Antifa or Black Lives Matter murder people, they get let out the next day with no charges because they're doing what the government wants them to do. But so when these corporations, if you do what the government says, they won't. You can break the law as long as you're doing it in their name, and they won't charge you. And they'll also give you billion-dollar contracts, and they'll also let you do all kinds of illegal shit as long as you're working for them. And if you don't work for them, you saw what happened with Elon Musk. As soon as Elon Musk started talking about buying Twitter, they started talking about taking away his Section 230 protection. All kinds of criminal investigations have been opened against Elon Musk. Now they're looking into stuff like, oh, he said that these Teslas had self-driving, and that's misinformation. We're going to fine you. Now, there was no talk of this until he talked about buying Twitter. So now that he's a threat, now that he's talking about free speech, now they're talking about canceling his contracts and investigating him and fining him. And they will. This is what I'm talking about. So big tech is bad. Don't get me wrong. But they're bad because they've gotten in bed with the government. But it's not like they got into bed with the government willingly. It was basically kind of like we can do this the easy way or the hard way kind of get into the bed. The government made them an offer they couldn't refuse. And you saw this in the 90s with Microsoft and Netscape. So Bill Gates, back in the 90s, he wasn't spending any money on lobbying when Microsoft was the biggest company in America, in the world. And these politicians were like, who the fuck does Bill Gates think he is? He's not giving us our cut. These politicians feel entitled to be lobbied by big corporations. If you're not lobbying them, they feel like insulted. And so what they did was they got with Microsoft's competition, which was Netscape, and they sued Microsoft under antitrust laws for daring to include a web browser in Windows. Now, we laugh at that now because we just use, Microsoft Internet Explorer to download Chrome. The fact that it's packaged with Windows doesn't mean anything. But back in the 90s, they argued that was like this unfair business practice because, oh my gosh, you're packing a browser with Windows. That's really unfair to Netscape. And they were going to sue Microsoft for antitrust and force them to pay all these fines. So what Bill Gates did is he basically increased his lobbying. He went from having no lobbying to dozens of sorry, I've got like some phlegm in my throat. He sent dozens of lobbyists down to Washington to give tens of thousands of millions of dollars to politicians. And then it all went away. It all went away. So the lesson is, if you don't do what the government wants, they're going to go to your competition. And you see this happening in countries. If you don't do what the U.S. government wants, they're going to find your opposition. They're going to give them money and weapons to overthrow you and become their puppet. So they do this in foreign countries. They do this in Wall Street. They do this everywhere. It's you do what we say. It's the silver or lead arrangement. If you work with us, we'll give you money. If you work against us, we'll destroy you. So people blame big tech and they blame capitalism and they blame Wall Street, but they don't have a choice. Wall Street, Walmart, BlackRock, they can't shoot you. They don't have guns. They don't have anything. The government has the guns. So they're just doing what they have to. Because if they don't, like if BlackRock or Walmart or any of these woke companies ever told the government to go fuck itself, their competition would the government would actively launch investigations and lawsuits while giving all this contracts and privileges to their competition until they were bankrupt. Like, look what happened to Kanye West.
Let's not get into that.
He's fucking gone, just like it never even happened. Like he's Kanye West.
Yeah, he's
completely unpersoned.
Yeah, I know, but let's not get too crazy with that shit, because I'm sure Susan is part of that faith.
But we're talking. No, I'm not. We don't even have to talk about what it was about. But Kanye West is one of the most richest, famous, successful people in the world. And they completely destroyed him. They took everything from him.
$1 billion to $400 million.
Well, yeah, but still rich. But not only that. Well, but George Floyd's family is suing him for that $400 million.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
So he's going to go from a billionaire to a nothing heir.
Gentlemen, think about it. You're being sued for having a different opinion.
Yeah, well, and it's but the point is this, a lot of people want to blame the elites. Oh, it's Hollywood, it's the elites. No, it's not the elites, it's the government. You look at the rich, famous, powerful CEOs, they could be destroyed like that. Any corporation, any celebrity, anybody who stands up against the cathedral gets destroyed. So that's who the problem is. It's not. But everyone wants to blame the elites, and they want to blame the rich, and they want to blame Wall Street, and they want to blame corporations because it seems like an easier enemy. Like we can beat Hollywood, we can beat Walmart, we can beat BlackRock, but can we beat the United States government? Can we beat not just the United States? Because you think of the cathedral, it's not just the United States. It's the United States, Canada, it's Europe, it's the World Economic Forum, it's everything. Like, are we going to beat that? Like, that's everything.
Yeah, everybody's working together.
Well, so
in my opinion.
It's a very when you realize that the enemy is so entrenched and it's just everywhere. It's all around you. And it's not so. The thing that pisses me off is everything gets sidetracked into different races or different issues. And if you're familiar with the Frankfurt School, they invented critical theory, and they also invented political correctness, which later is what we call it cancel culture now. But back in the 90s, it was called political correctness, and it came from the Frankfurt School. And the Frankfurt School created cultural Marxism, where they still spread Marxism, but they don't spread it using the class argument. Originally, Marxism was about the workers of the world uniting against the bourgeoisie. Well, that argument didn't work. So what they tried to do then is they split it to everything. So feminism, LGBT, critical race theory, everything is I call it the head of the hydra of cultural Marxism. And notice whatever you criticize, they hold up their kind of meat shield, and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're criticizing Marxism, you hate women. Oh, you're criticizing Marxism, you hate black people. You're criticizing Marxism, you hate the environment. You want us all to die." And it's all just ahead of the hydra. It's all Marxism.
Yeah.
But the people get sidetracked. They say, "Oh, it's all feminism. It's all the environmentalists. It's all the Jews." It's not. Those are all heads of the hydra. They accuse you of being a racist, a sexist. You're anti-environmental. You're an anti-Semite. These are all just heads of the hydra. If you look beyond the meat shield, you see that it's just progressive Marxism. It's cultural Marxism. And it's everywhere. It's the government. It's the World Economic Forum. It's the media. But you notice people in the media, like you remember during COVID, there were people in the media who were speaking out and they got destroyed and fired and everything. So when you say the media, it's not the reporters, because if you don't toe the line, they get rid of you.
I completely agree, man. I definitely agree with what you're saying. But currently we're running on 2 hours. Do you want to do a part 3?
I mean, what else is there to talk about? Like, we kind of covered everything.
Still more to talk about.
Well, let's,
but
it's Friday night.
Will be on Odyssey.
Oh my gosh.
Or any other place you think that would be good.
Look, I'm fine talking about whatever, wherever.
Yeah, I'm down, but the things I want to talk about, I can't talk about it here.
Well, the thing is, I know everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you can't talk about Jews, or you can't talk about black people, or you can't talk about this." But that's the thing. That's not the issue. People get like, "Oh, here's the thing that pisses me off," because like obviously I have a Jewish co-host. I have friends who are Jewish. Jews aren't the problem. They really aren't. The reason why everything gets shut down is because to explain the real problem, there are some uncomfortable. There's some uncomfortable facts that people don't want to talk about, but it's fine. It's just one of those things where, like, for example, the Frankfurt School, they were Jewish communists. All the members of the Frankfurt School were Jews living in Germany who fled Germany and came to America because of the rise of Hitler. So they were Jews, but like they weren't doing it in the name of Judaism. They're doing it in the name of Marxism. There are Marxists of every race, of every religion. There are Marxists. There are white Marxists, black Marxists, Hispanic
that's
Marxists,
fine, but
Asian
I want
Marxists.
to continue this on a different platform.
All right. Well, but
I do. I'm not going
to name. I'm not going to name names or try to get you in trouble. My point is, though, people, when you focus on, like, we focus on feminism, well, then they just accuse you of hating women. If you focus on a certain religion, they accuse you of hating them, or you hate black people. Or if you focus on the environmentalism, like the climate change agenda and all that bullshit, they accuse you, "Oh, you hate the environment. You're part of big oil." You notice the arguments are always the same, and the accusation, it is you hate whatever, but it's all bullshit. Like the environmentalists, the feminists, the critical race theory. None of that is actually about those things. It's just Marxism. And here's how you can tell. When you look at these articles written by these retards, and they're talking about, oh, we have to get rid of whiteness, we have to get rid of straight heterosexuality, we got to get rid of chauvinism. Replace those with capitalism, and everything will click. When they criticize white heterosexuality, this, that, the other, they're just they're attacking That's all it is. It's just communism. They just attack it. They don't attack it from an economic angle. That's what cultural Marxism is all about. They don't want to make the case about the workers and the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. They want to make it about minorities versus white people, gay people versus straight people, women versus men, Jews versus Gentiles. But it's all just communism. It's all a mask. It's all bullshit. But if you fall for the bullshit and you start arguing about critical race theory and we got to get a race war, or oh, it's the Jews, or oh, it's the environmentalists, and no, it's not. Those are all just heads of the Hydra.
Yeah.
And you can't kill the Hydra if you attack the heads. Attacking the heads, more heads will spring up. You have to kill the Hydra by destroying its body, and the body is communism.
I completely agree. At the end of the day, it's all about divide and conquer. I agree with that. But right now, we definitely had a good stream today. I'm sure that my subs will enjoy what you said, because you definitely dropped a lot of gems today. And I truly believe we should do a part 3, but not on YouTube, because I do want to talk about certain topics that I can't talk on here.
Right. So if we talk about like LGBT stuff or stuff like that, like you're gonna get in trouble. That's the point. Like that's their weapon.
Yeah, that's their weapon. I agree. I definitely agree, man. And it just sucks that it has to get to this point, because I shouldn't have to feel that I have to suppress what I truly think about certain things without having my channel being destroyed. It's fucked up. But right now, I truly believe YouTube within 10 years, it won't be as popular as people think. I really do believe that there will be a couple of alt techs that'll be able to overtake YouTube within the next 10 years.
Well, or the entire system will collapse with hyperinflation, and social media censorship will be the last thing we were worrying about. We'll be pining for the days where we were worried about Susan taking our partnership away. That'll be we'll be giggling over the fucking bonfire of our enemies' corpses. Like, hey, remember Yeetus when we were worried about losing our YouTube channels as we're like throwing bodies on the bonfire?
Yeah, we kind of starved right now, but hey, make sure you subscribe to my channel.
Yeah, make sure to like and comment.
I'm sorry.
It really helps the algorithm.
Oh shit, it's too fucking funny. But TFM, once again, man, like I want to bring you in here once in a while, because you already know how Susan will be able to pick up your scent. Like, yeah, I thought I kicked you out. Why are you still here?
Yeah, I'm like herpes. You can't get rid of me, Susan. I just keep coming back.
There's no end to this shit.
I'm all up on your lips. I'm on your lips, Susan. Everyone knows what you did.
I saw your browser history.
I'm the monkeypox on your butthole.
Goddamn. But TFM, if you want to do a part 3, we could definitely do that for sure.
Yeah, I'm down.
But on Odyssey. But at the end of the day,
or Rumble. Actually, do you have a Rumble?
Oh, what's up?
Do you have a Rumble?
Not yet, but I can create it tonight.
Yeah, I think actually between you and me, I think Rumble's actually overtaking Odyssey. So
I can see that, especially when the Tate's brothers took over Rumble like overnight. So like a lot of people,
you got Steven Crowder, you got Russell Brand, a lot of big YouTubers are transitioning over to Rumble. So in Rumble's, I have a Rumble channel. It doesn't cost you anything. So you should probably create a Rumble account.
Hermit, I appreciate your $5 donation, but I cannot read your super chat on YouTube.
Oh shit!
I can't.
Is it like
I appreciate it.
Can't talk about it.
Like
you
a
gotta
million
save that.
%, but I cannot read your shit on here. That is like no. Because you already know how TFM he's gonna get too base. All right, because he tells the truth. They don't like the truth.
You can't talk about. We can't name the juice.
we can't. Like it'd be game over. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow. I'm like,
what juice? What juice are you drinking? Drinking some apple juice, some orange juice? I can't name the juice. It's mystery juice. It could be apple juice. It could be orange juice. It could be punch. I can't tell you. I can't name the juice.
I can't name it, but you can't have any. But TFM, thank you for joining. I'll definitely make plans to do a number 3.
Right.
And I will give props to Hermit because Hermit is the one that gave us the contact information to do streams in the first place. So Hermit, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just saying the content that you want me to talk about, Susan will not like that at all.
No.
But this is your boy Sir Yeetus and TFM. Thank you guys for joining. Hopefully you enjoy the shit ton of gems that we dropped on you today. And TFM will return. I am out.
Bejeweled.
Peace.